Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and it's my birthday today. It's my 30th birthday today. Yeah, oof. I'm currently having a thirder life crisis. Turning 30, going into my 30s is a little daunting. I've heard it's fun though. I heard 30s are a good time. It's supposed to be like your 20s, but maybe you know a little bit more of what you want to do. And I'm saying this to a camera where I talk about trick-taking games, so I think it's only up from here. I'm having a good time, and it's better than, turning 130, right? Because then I'd be dead. So I'm looking forward to it, especially this birthday, where, as you're watching this, I'll be actually in Ohio. I'm going to T7. It's this invite-only trick-taking convention where there's a lot of hard-to-find trick-taking games and a lot of people who love trick-taking games. So it's gonna be super fun. I'm hoping to do kind of a video maybe next week or the week after showing the travels and misadventures at the trick-taking con. There's a lot of events planned there, and I'm super excited to kind of see what's going to be happening. Truth be told though, and you might notice this very nice fanny pack here, the flight is in 24 hours and I haven't packed. So I thought we could, pack some while we chat here. And of course, you want to bring trick-taking games to a trick-taking convention. That's kind of the point. So, space is limited. Let's actually just cover this one. This is Radiant, where the game designed by Randall Marsh is actually trick-taking and area control. After all, it's Japaria, or Jaria. I keep saying that wrong. But that is January, where we're talking about area control trick-taking games. And the hook really is you are drafting your hand, you're melding your hand, kind of like Volt Treffer, which we covered in the past. But also, afterward, you're playing a trick-taking area control game, where you're fighting over these 4 kind of realms. I haven't spent too much time on this, and like I said, I have a flight to catch. So I think we're going to do a really quick rules overview just to give a sense of how to play, and then also a really quick final thoughts, because I think this game does have some pretty interesting elements that kind of bring something new to the whole area control trick-taking world. I like how there's so many of those games that there is kind of a niche within a niche within a niche of a niche, really. But so let's go to the table and I'll show you how to play. The deck in Radiant is made up of 4 suits ranked kind of sword to low shield, high shield, more complex shield with a guy, and more complex shield with a guy and 2 knives. They have this helpful sheet here. As you can see, the shield just gets more complex till it has a dude and 2 swords on it, and then down here is like a special card with an assassin. So there's 2 copies of each card in the deck. This is going to be a really quick teach. There's going to be a better teach in the description below, but effectively you'll play 3 hands of the game, and for each hand there's going to be 3 phases. You're going to be drafting cards, then you're going to be melding cards, and then you're going to be playing trick-taking area control. So let's go into the drafting. Before the drafting, each player is going to get dealt 10 cards. Then each player are going to go around in circles and draft 4 cards. So how the draft works is just going to be 9 cards dealt out. Each player will just take one to their hand and then refill with one from the deck. After the draft, each player is then going to meld simultaneously from their hand. And so what you do is, maybe this player has some melds here, you'll just take them out and put them on the table. So that is melding a mounted knight, and then here is an assassin's guild, where there's 1 of each sword. Depending on the hand you're playing in, you're going to get points. So they would get 2 for the guild and 1 for the knight, so they get 3 points. The players would just keep track of that by the score track around the board, and after they've done melding, then the person who has the most of a certain type of card will start to the first trick. So the trick taking is must follow. How it works is the player who's about to lead will go to one of the areas on the board, and that's where you are fighting. So the areas correspond to the 4 suits. So maybe the player goes to this clouds here, they could lead a cloud card, and the other players have to follow suit. So maybe in this very basic example here, the person who played the highest card, and if there's a tie, it's whoever played the first one, will win the trick. So in this case, it's the first player who played the very first knight card, which is the strongest. Let's say it was blue. They'll place a blue marker of theirs on the board. So now they've controlled 1 of the areas in this section. Whoever has the most in a section will get 6 points at the end of a hand. So jumping forward in this case here, maybe it looked like this, blue would get 6 points. After a battle, the person who won will just move the next battle marker pawn to an orthogonally adjacent area. If you're off suit, you know, if this was a situation and anyone played blue, they wouldn't be able to win even if they had the highest strength. However, there's always a radiant suit that is always able to win, even if it isn't part of the battle. So like, let's say the battle was happening over here, the highest blue would win, except the radiant could always win. So the highest green or blue could win. There's other minutia, but that's the general flow of the game, is you'll be playing tricks, people will be marking who won, and the person who won will just move the pawn, the battle pawn, to the next spot. You keep doing that until everyone is out of cards. I say that because there's two kind of special things about the game that I should cover. One is usually the strongest card in a suit is this, you know, this super strong here. But two cards can be played at the same time that are called a mounted knight. And as you can see, they're here. Those will beat any failings. So you can play two cards into the trick to beat the strongest of that suit, or any suit that is viable to win, you know, like if you're over here or the radiance part of it. What's interesting about that is the player who played those two cards, they're down a card compared to everyone else, so they'd be out of the trick taking early. The other special thing that happens in trick taking is the assassination. So if someone plays an assassination card, like any of these swords here, they name a player and they'll name a card. So like one of these over here, like maybe they'll name the knight. And if the player has that, the player will have to play the knight from their hand, discard it essentially, and in addition to pulling that card out of the targeted player's hand, the player who played the assassin, this card that they played, will then turn into the rank of whatever card they called out. So this now becomes a knight card. That's some of the interesting things that can happen in this game. Again, go to the full rules teach, but for now, let's go to final thoughts. So that is Radiant, and again, super quick ideas here. I kind of want to do a cool pro that I noticed and a cool con. And a con, or maybe something that was a little off to me in my group, and just bounce a little bit back and forth here. Maybe let's start with the good. I thought the production was great, absolutely wonderful art, and the components were really clean, and the graphic design was great. A con within that graphic design though, and this might just be player dependent, because personally I didn't find it too hard to keep track of, but as I was showing, the suits on the cards are different symbols, and you know, the ranking where it just gets more complex, you know, the shield and then the sword on the bottom, that was really hard for some players to get their head wrapped around. They kind of wished it was just, you know, a 0 for the assassins and then 1 through, you know, 5 for the other suits. And I can kind of see both ways. I think it makes sense that the knighted mount are two different knights and mounts, and then those together create a different card. I think it was just really hard to easily perceive the strength of a card, especially because for that person, they felt like the filled-in shield was higher than the half shield. There was like a weird kind of disconnect for them. So I could see where you want theme in your game and you want there to be kind of an aesthetic and a graphic design, but it's kind of tough for me to justify that when some players just have so much trouble understanding or easily visualizing a rank, especially in the draft. Like if you're drafting and you would see just kind of a mess of, not a mess, but just like a flurry of these like symbols and swords and shields, it's hard to really parse that. It's hard to look at a group of 9 cards, all with different symbols and colors, and really identify easily how strong a card is. So, talking about the draft, I actually really liked the draft. The melds made a lot of sense for kind of what you were going for, and even in the trick taking, where the radiant suit is super strong, because it can just, you know, be value or able to win in every trick, it made for drafting those very important. I found that the avenues for the draft were always good. I always had some fun kind of push your luck moments, some fun trying to complete set moments, and it was cool to keep track of what people drafted and then later on melted because of the thing that I liked most in the game, which was the assassin. So in a lot of these types of games where you're drafting and then showing your hand a little bit for points, like melding, like maybe Pinochle, you kind of just use that information for the trick play and kind of the card counting. But if you're someone who doesn't really card count or doesn't want to focus too much on everything someone melds or shows, if you have an assassin, then you can just really focus on what you want to pull out of those people's hands. And the assassin lets you essentially destroy any mounted knight that you've seen. And it's a really nice balancing mechanism to having a low card have that power to become a good card or become a high card. I don't know if that was my most favorite part of the game, but that had a really interesting kind of balancing of power to it that made me want to play more. My last con is maybe just a personal thing, but I don't like games that ramp artificially. We talked about this with Ambient Abyssal at 2, and I think Eternity and its remake Anansi do this as well, where the later rounds are just worth more, and it's kind of like this pseudo catch-up mechanism, but it kind of just falls flat a little bit to me, because if I did well in the first round, why am I penalized because it was the first round? And I get why it's there, I get why it builds tension, but it just feels a little hollow to me. I also kind of wished that there's a thing in the third round where the capture tricks give you coins. Kind of just wish that was throughout. There was a lot of interesting moments, but I think it would have been better for me if it was just more consistently present. But again, I totally get why it's there. I know that it builds tension. It makes like anyone who's losing, you know, have a final chance in the last hand. My voice is going out. In the last hand. But, you know, it just, I don't know what it is if I had to like dig deep into why I feel like that. It's just because if I do just as well as you, but I do better earlier, I should not win. It's kind of a weird argument. But hey, it builds tension, it builds an arc, so I totally get why designers do it. So that is Radiant, and I liked it. I want to try it a little bit more. There's some rough edges that are a little dissuading, but hopefully maybe with more plays, those rough edges get a little nice and smooth. And then the smooth edges that do seem interesting keep being interesting. That's a weird way to phrase it. I hope the interesting parts, you know, reveal themselves even more. So I hope to play it some more. It does interesting area control, a little bit like Brian Maru, where the blocking is kind of the more interesting part to it. You can really have interesting, I'm saying interesting like a million times. Oh my gosh. I should get a thesaurus for my birthday. But anyway, the blocking and the area control hopefully becomes even cooler the more I know about the game. Cooler, interesting. Yeah, I definitely need a thesaurus. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna go get old. I'm gonna go have a birthday. Say goodbye to 20s Taylor. Goodbye. I'm gonna be 30. Hopefully I start talking like old people do. You know how like they'll like seize on a detail that doesn't matter in a story. They're like, oh, I went to the market and it was 8 p.m. Or was it 7 p.m.? No, it was 8. Oh no, it was 7:30 because it was after Jeopardy. No, it was 7:15 because it was during Jeopardy. You know what I'm talking about? Like they just like, it doesn't matter. You're just like, keep telling the story, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna get like that. As if these final thoughts weren't rambling enough. Anyway, I'm gonna go get old. Bye.